The Korea Mafia boss who had a one-night stand with a Nigerian prostitute and had a secret son he didn't know about. The rain in Seoul fell like it had something to confess. It streaked down neon-lit streets, blurring the city into a trembling canvas of red signs and silver reflections. Inside a private lounge above the city, Kang Joon-suk sat alone, his tailored black suit untouched by the chaos he ruled. He was known as a man without softness, a name whispered in fear, a shadow that decided who lived comfortably and who vanished quietly. Yet tonight, something restless moved in his chest, unfamiliar and unwelcome. He had closed deals soaked in blood and betrayal without blinking, but this night felt heavier, as though fate had leaned in too close. The door opened, letting in music, laughter, and a woman who did not belong in his world yet walked into it as if she had always been meant to. Her name was Amara. She was Nigerian, her skin the deep glow of midnight oil. Her eyes sharp and tired in the way only survival could carve into a person. She wore confidence like armor, not because she wanted to, but because the world had taught her that softness was expensive. Her laugh reached Joon-suk before she did, warm and careless, and it unsettled him. She wasn't supposed to matter. She was only meant to distract him for a night arranged by men who thought pleasure could pacify power. That was how these things usually went. Women came and went, faces forgotten by morning. But when Amara met his gaze, something stalled between them, as though the air itself had hesitated. He studied her with the same cold precision he used on enemies, yet the closer she came, the harder it became to keep that distance. There was defiance in the way she walked, sadness hidden beneath practiced charm, and a quiet dignity that did not beg for approval. She was not afraid of him. That alone was dangerous. They spoke little at first. Words felt unnecessary, clumsy even. Their connection unfolded in silences heavy with curiosity, glances that lingered too long, fingers brushing accidentally and then not moving away. For the first time in years, Joon-suk was not thinking of consequences. When he kissed her, it wasn't hunger that led him, it was recognition. As if his soul had found something it didn't know it had been missing. The night unraveled slowly, tender where it should have been rough, emotional where it should have been transactional. Amara was not just a body. She was presence, warmth, ache. She spoke of Lagos with a nostalgia that cracked her voice, of dreams she once had before life cornered her into survival. He listened, truly listened, something no one expected of him. For one fragile night, Kang Joon-suk was not a boss, not a ruler of darkness. He was just a man holding a woman who felt like a secret the universe had kept from him too long. Morning came cruelly. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, exposing reality like a blade. Joon-suk woke with a strange calm, then panic, then a decision he would later regret more than any violent order he had ever given. He left money on the table, far more than necessary, not as payment, but as apology for what he could not offer. When Amara woke, the room was empty. She stared at the door for a long time, her chest tight, telling herself not to feel foolish. Men like him did not stay. Men like him did not love. She dressed quietly, swallowing disappointment like she had learned to do many times before. 2 weeks later, nausea greeted her mornings. At first she blamed stress, then denial, then fear. When the truth became undeniable, she sat alone in a cramped clinic room, staring at the ceiling as tears slid silently into her hair. The doctor's words echoed, unreal and irreversible. She was pregnant. Back in Seoul, Kang Joon-suk returned to his empire, but something had shifted. Violence felt louder. Nights felt emptier. He found himself replaying the sound of Amara's laugh, the way she looked at him as if he were human, not legend. He considered finding her, then dismissed the thought as weakness. Men like him did not chase ghosts. Months passed. Amara returned to Nigeria, her body changing, her life narrowing and expanding all at once. She named her son Malik, meaning king, because despite the circumstances of his birth, she refused to let him enter the world unloved. She never told anyone who his father was. Not because she didn't know, but because she understood power. She understood danger. And somewhere deep inside, she feared that Kang Jun-suk, if he ever learned the truth, would see the child as a liability before he saw him as blood. Years folded into each other. Malik grew with his father's sharp eyes and his mother's resilience. He was brilliant, curious, too observant for his age. Amara watched him carefully, love and fear coiling together in her chest. She raised him with stories instead of secrets, but sometimes she caught him staring at his reflection, as though searching for someone he had never met. In Seoul, Jun-suk became more ruthless, more untouchable. His name expanded beyond borders, whispered even in African ports and underworld circles. He had everything: money, loyalty, fear, yet there was an emptiness that no victory filled. On his 40th birthday, alone in his penthouse, he dreamed of a woman with dark skin and tired eyes, holding a boy who looked just like him. He woke up shaken. Fate, patient and cruel, was not finished. Not even close. Malik learned early how to read his mother's silences. Amara was strong in obvious ways. She worked long hours, laughed loudly, carried herself with a confidence that made people underestimate how much she carried inside. But there were moments, small and unguarded, when her eyes drifted somewhere far away, and Malik sensed a story she would never tell him. He was 7 when he first asked about his father. They were sitting on the narrow balcony of their apartment in Port Harcourt, the evening heat clinging to their skin as generators hummed in the distance. Malik traced shapes on the rusted railing with his finger, pretending he didn't care. "Did my father die?" he asked casually, too casually for a child his age. Amara froze for half a second. "No," she said gently. "Is he bad?" Malik pressed, lifting his eyes to her face. She studied him, her heart tightening. He had her lips, her chin, but those eyes, sharp and observant, carried a depth she had only ever seen once before. "He's complicated," she finally said. Malik nodded, accepting the answer even though it didn't satisfy him. He was used to living with unanswered questions. Children like him often were. At school, teachers praised his intelligence but worried about his temper. Malik did not start fights, but he finished them with unsettling calm. When other boys tried to bully him, there was something in his stare that made them hesitate, as if they sensed something dangerous beneath his quietness. Amara saw it too. It scared her. Back in Seoul, Kang Jun-suk stood at the peak of his empire, but peace continued to evade him. Rivals had been crushed, alliances secured, and yet paranoia followed him like a second shadow. He trusted no one fully. Even among his closest lieutenants, he kept emotional distance sharp enough to cut. Then the whispers began. A new player was moving through African ports, efficient, invisible, disciplined. Goods moved faster, losses were minimal, and local syndicates spoke of an unseen hand shaping the chaos into order. Jun-suk dismissed it at first. Africa was far, messy, unpredictable. But patterns never lied. When a trusted subordinate placed a file on his desk detailing the operations, Jun-suk's jaw tightened. The precision reminded him of himself in his younger years: hungry, strategic, ruthless when necessary. "Who's behind it?" he asked. "No clear name," the man replied. But all trails pass through Nigeria. The word Nigeria stirred something unexplainable in his chest. That night, Jun-suk poured himself a drink he didn't need and stared out over the city. He thought of a woman he had not seen in nearly a decade. He told himself it was coincidence, that memory was a weak thing, prone to illusions. Still, sleep did not come easily. Amara felt the shift before she understood it. Men started watching her too closely. Strangers lingered near Malik's school longer than necessary. A black SUV appeared twice on her street, always gone before she could confront it. Her instincts screamed danger, the same instincts that had kept her alive long before Malik was born. She considered running again. But running with a child was different. One evening, Malik came home with a cut on his eyebrow and blood on his shirt. He was quiet, withdrawn, his jaw clenched too tight. "What happened?" Amara demanded, panic rising. "They tried to take my bag," he said. "I didn't let them." Her hands trembled as she cleaned the wound. You should have given it to them. I don't give people things they haven't earned, Malik replied calmly. The words chilled her. That night, Amara sat alone on her bed after Malik fell asleep, staring at the ceiling just as she had in that Seoul clinic years ago. She realized the truth she had been avoiding. Malik was becoming more like his father every day. And his father was not a man the world ignored. Thousands of miles away, Kang Jun-suk finally gave the order. I want eyes in Nigeria, he said. Quiet ones. The investigation took weeks. Names, faces, financial trails, whispers exchanged in back rooms. Then one file reached his hands, thinner than the rest but heavier. Woman. Nigerian. Former escort in Seoul. His fingers stilled. The photo attached was old, grainy, but unmistakable. Mara. His chest tightened painfully, a sensation he had not felt since the morning he walked out of that hotel room. Memories he had buried surged forward, her laugh, her warmth, the way she looked at him without fear. She has a son, the report stated. The room seemed to tilt. How old? He asked, his voice dangerously calm. Ain. The math hit him like a gunshot. Jun-suk dismissed everyone and sat alone for a long time, staring at nothing. He had ordered deaths without remorse, ruined families without a second thought, but the possibility that he had a son living a life he knew nothing about fractured something deep inside him. Rage came first. At Amara for never telling him. At himself for leaving. At fate for daring to bind him to something so vulnerable. Then fear followed. Because in his world blood was leverage. In Port Harcourt, Amara packed a small bag and hid documents beneath loose floorboards. She kissed Malik's forehead longer than usual that night. Mom, he murmured sleepily. Why are you scared? She swallowed hard. I'm not scared. I'm just careful. Malik opened his eyes, studying her face in the dark. You don't have to protect me alone. Tears burned her eyes. I know, she whispered, though she had never felt more alone in her life. In Seoul, Kang Jun-suk stood before the mirror, seeing not the feared boss reflected back, but a man on the brink of something irreversible. If the boy was his, everything changed. If he reached out, he risked exposing the child to a world soaked in violence. If he stayed away, he would be abandoning his own blood. For the first time, power offered him no answers, only consequences. And fate, relentless as ever, was already moving pieces into place. The first time Malik felt it, he didn't know how to explain it. It was a pull sharp and sudden, like standing too close to the edge of something deep. He was walking home from school when the air around him shifted, when his instincts flared for no clear reason. He stopped, turned slowly, and locked eyes with a man standing across the street. The man wasn't dressed like the others around him. Too clean. Too alert. His gaze held calculation, not curiosity. Malik felt his chest tighten. The man looked away first. That night, Malik dreamed of a tall stranger with cold eyes and a familiar face. He woke with his heart pounding. The image burned into his mind. Amara noticed the change immediately. Her son became quieter, more guarded. He started asking questions that cut too close to truths she had locked away for years. Why did you leave Korea? Malik asked one evening, casually flipping through a book as if the question meant nothing. Amara's breath caught. Why are you asking about Korea? You told me once that's where I was born, he said. I just wondered why we didn't stay. She forced a smile. Some places are beautiful but not safe. Malik studied her face, unconvinced but wise enough not to push. In Seoul, Kang Jun-suk had not slept in 2 days. The file lay open on his desk, pages creased from his hands, gripping them too tightly. Surveillance photos, financial records, school schedules. His men had done their job too well. There was no longer any doubt. The boy was his. The resemblance was undeniable, the eyes, the posture, the way the child carried himself even at a distance. Jun-suk felt something unfamiliar crack open in his chest, something raw and terrifying. Possession. Not in the way he possessed territories or men, but in the way something fragile suddenly belonged to him. And in his world, belonging invited danger. "You've been compromised," his closest lieutenant warned carefully. "If rivals learn." "They won't," Jun-suk snapped. But he knew better. Secrets like this had a way of bleeding out. Against his better judgment, he flew to Nigeria. Not with an entourage. Not with banners of power. Just a few shadows he trusted with his life. He told himself it was reconnaissance, control, strategy. He did not admit it was longing. Amara felt him before she saw him. She was closing her shop when a familiar weight pressed against her chest, the same sensation she had felt years ago in that Seoul lounge. Her hands stilled, her breath shallow. He turned. Kang Jun-suk stood across the street, older, sharper, but unmistakably him. The world seemed to narrow until only the two of them existed. Her knees almost buckled. He didn't approach. He didn't smile. He simply looked at her. His expression caught somewhere between rage and awe. She understood immediately. He knew. Amara closed her shop early that day, her heart hammering painfully as she walked home. She barely noticed when Malik fell into step beside her. "Mom," he said quietly. "That man. Why does he look at you like that?" Her throat tightened. "Which man?" "The one from earlier," Malik replied. "The one who looks like me." The words landed like a blade. That night, Amara told Malik to pack a bag. "We're going away?" he asked, trying to hide his excitement. "Yes," she said softly. "For a while." She didn't tell him where. She didn't tell him why. She only knew running was instinct, and instinct had kept her alive this long. They never made it to the bus station. A black car pulled alongside them, silent and inevitable. Men stepped out, not rough, not loud but efficient. Malik instinctively stepped in front of his mother. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The sight shattered Jun-suk. He emerged from the car slowly, raising a hand. "No one will touch you." His voice was calm, but his eyes locked onto Malik with something dangerously close to emotion. Amara trembled. "You should have stayed away." "So should you," he replied quietly. The silence stretched, thick with everything unsaid. Malik looked between them, confusion etched across his face. "Mom, who is he?" Amara opened her mouth, then closed it again. Tears filled her eyes. Jun-suk answered instead. "I'm someone who should have been there," he said. "And someone who won't disappear again." The truth settled heavily between them. Malik stared at him, studying him the way children do when they sense something irreversible. He didn't feel fear. He felt recognition. "You're my father," Malik said. It wasn't a question. Amara sobbed then, years of fear and love and regret crashing out of her. Jun-suk felt his knees weaken, the world tilting violently as the word father wrapped around his chest. "Yes," he said hoarsely. "Him." In that moment, enemies, empires, blood, all of it faded. There was only the boy standing before him, unafraid, unbroken, reaching for something he had never had. Malik stepped closer, eyes never leaving Jun-suk's face. "Why did you leave us?" The question cut deeper than any blade. "I thought I was protecting you," Jun-suk said truthfully. "But I was wrong." Sirens wailed in the distance. Somewhere someone had noticed. And somewhere else, forces were already moving to exploit the most dangerous weakness Kang Jun-suk had ever had: his heart. The night air in Port Harcourt was heavy with rain, but it didn't wash away the tension. Kang Jun-suk stayed with Amara and Malik in the small apartment, yet every glance outside the window reminded him of danger lurking. In Seoul he had built an empire on fear and precision, but here he realized he was exposed. Amara kept a knife hidden beneath the mattress. Malik had no idea. Her hands shook as she wiped the counter, rehearsing lies she could tell if men came asking questions. But her eyes kept darting to Jun-suk, who sat silently in the corner, staring at Malik as if memorizing him in ways no parent should ever be forced to do after years apart. Malik, unaware of the precariousness of the situation, was too excited to process the magnitude of the man's presence. He wanted stories. He wanted answers. But most of all, he wanted to understand why this stranger, this man with eyes so much like his own, had vanished before he was even born. "Will you teach me to fight?" Malik asked suddenly, breaking the heavy silence. Jun-suk's jaw tightened. "I don't want you fighting anyone unless it's necessary." "But you fight," Malik said matter-of-factly. "And I look like you. That means I can too." Amara's hands froze mid-motion. The boy was dangerous even without lessons. Jun-suk's gaze softened fractionally, just enough to reveal that beneath the steel, he was human. "You'll learn control first," he said. "Strength without control is useless." The boy's eyes sparkled, hunger for knowledge ignited. That fire stirred something inside Jun-suk that he hadn't felt in years, a dangerous combination of pride and fear. The next day the world crashed back in. Jun-suk's men had traced Amara and Malik's location within hours. A rival faction, sensing weakness in the sudden appearance of the Korean boss abroad, began making moves. The city streets became a chessboard, with pawns unaware of the stakes. Amara had prepared for threats, but even she was unready for the cold efficiency of men trained to eliminate without hesitation. It began subtly. A motorbike following them when Malik went to school. A shadow near the shop entrance. Messages left on the apartment door. The kind of warning that doesn't ask politely. Jun-suk recognized the tactics instantly. His instincts screamed that this was not random. This was calculated. Someone had learned about the child. That night he made the decision that would change everything. "We leave," he said, voice cold, almost commanding. Amara shook her head. "We can't just. Do you want him dead?" He interrupted. "Because if we stay, he could be taken in minutes." Malik looked between them, understanding more than either adult realized. "Who's after me?" he asked, calm but unervingly mature. "People who want power," Jun-suk said. "People who don't care who gets hurt." He handed Amara his coat. "Take him. I'll follow." She hesitated. For all her strength, this was bigger than anything she had faced. But she trusted him. She had no choice. The night swallowed them as they moved quietly through the city, Malik clutching Amara's hand. They could feel eyes on them, the invisible weight of predators circling, but Jun-suk kept them safe, silent as the shadow he was born to be. In a moment of rare vulnerability, Amara glanced at him. "Why now? After all these years?" His gaze softened just enough to let her see the answer. "'Cause it's my son. And I've wasted enough time pretending that didn't matter." Malik's small hand tugged at his sleeve. "You're my father." "Yes," Jun-suk said simply. "And I'm not leaving again." The boy smiled, a rare unguarded smile, and it broke something in Jun-suk's heart that he didn't even know could break. They reached a safe house hours later, a secluded villa on the outskirts of the city. Lights were off, guards hidden in the shadows, and for the first time in days, Amara allowed herself to breathe. Malik ran through the rooms, laughing freely, and Jun-suk watched. His chest tight with emotions he had never acknowledged. But peace was short-lived. A single phone call shattered the fragile calm. "The boy is valuable," a rival's voice sneered. "We have eyes on your little family. Seoul will pay if you interfere." Jun-suk's hand tightened around the receiver until his knuckles whitened. "No one touches my son," he said, voice low and deadly. "Then we'll see who's faster." The rival laughed before the line went dead. He hung up, his mind already moving 10 steps ahead. This was no longer just about territory or money. This was about survival. And nothing, not even loyalty, mattered more than protecting Malik. That night, Amara finally spoke her fear aloud. "What if he's too much like you? What if he draws the wrong attention?" Jun-suk approached her slowly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Then we train him," he said firmly. "We teach him control, strength, and loyalty. We turn his danger into advantage." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "I've always protected him from everything," she whispered. "I thought I could handle it alone." "You're human," Jun-suk said. "And so was I. But we're stronger together." And we will survive. Malik, oblivious to the full weight of the conversation, climbed onto Jun-suk's lap. Teach me everything, he said with innocent determination. I want to be like you. The words were both a blessing and a curse. Jun-suk's heart ached, knowing the path he would have to guide his son through. The world they were in was unforgiving, and Malik's innocence could be destroyed in an instant. As dawn approached, the three of them sat together, the first fragile bond of family forming amidst danger, uncertainty, and unspoken promises. Jun-suk had once believed that love was weakness. Now he realized it was survival. And he would fight, bleed, and kill if necessary to protect what mattered most. Somewhere in the shadows, enemies were already moving, drawn by whispers and bloodlines. And Kang Jun-suk, the Korean Mafia boss feared by so many, had discovered that the greatest battle of his life was not against rival gangs, it was against time, fate, and the darkness closing in on the family he had only just found. The first attack came at midnight. Jun-suk was awake, as always, watching the perimeter from the balcony. His senses were taut, every sound amplified. The villa was supposed to be secure, but he knew better than to trust anyone completely. Even the walls had ears in a city like Port Harcourt. A shadow flickered near the gate. Too fast to be a stray. Too deliberate to be coincidence. He moved like a predator himself, silent and precise, disappearing into the darkness. Amara woke to the sound of glass shattering. Malik, terrified, clung to her side. The world seemed to tilt violently as gunfire erupted outside, echoing against the walls. Stay down. Jun-suk's voice cut through panic like a blade. Amara obeyed, pressing Malik against her chest, heart hammering. She had always known the world could be cruel, but never like this. Not like a storm breaking into the life she had built for her son. Jun-suk returned minutes later, dragging one of the intruders behind him. The man was unconscious but alive, a warning left for the others. His suit, now torn and bloodied, smelled of gunpowder and rain. They won't stop, he said quietly, locking the door. They know about Malik. They'll keep coming. Amara swallowed hard. Then we fight, she said. Jun-suk looked at her, surprise flashing across his otherwise unreadable face. She had never shown this side so openly before, the steel hidden beneath vulnerability. Yes, he admitted. We fight. But carefully. Strategically. Malik peeked from behind Amara's leg. I want to fight too, he said, the innocence in his voice clashing with the deadly reality around him. No, Jun-suk said immediately, softening only when he saw the hurt in the boy's eyes. Not yet. You watch. You learn. Then, when the time comes, you fight with purpose. That night, as the rain pounded relentlessly, the small family huddled together, planning, training, and preparing. Every shadow could be an enemy. Every movement could signal attack. And yet, in those moments they were family. Jun-suk taught Malik the first rules of combat: not to harm unnecessarily, but to survive. Each lesson was tempered with wisdom he had learned the hard way. Strength without restraint is destruction. Malik absorbed everything like a sponge, keenly aware of the stakes. Amara watched them, torn between awe and fear. She had underestimated Jun-suk, thinking the man who could control empires could be softened by love. But seeing him with her son revealed something entirely different. Fierceness, tenderness, and the kind of devotion that terrified and comforted her at once. Days blurred into nights. Surveillance reports, new threats, and constant vigilance consumed Jun-suk. But every night, he sat with Malik, recounting stories, not the empire, not the violence, but lessons, laughter, and memories from the few fleeting hours he had with Amara. Malik began to understand. He understood instinct. He understood control. And he began to understand what it meant to be the son of a man feared across continents. Then the ambush came. A convoy blocked the narrow road leading to the villa. Vehicles swarmed like locusts, armed men stepping out, guns gleaming. Jun-suk's team moved with precision. Bullets tore through the night, explosions shattered the stillness, and the air became thick with smoke and fear. Malik and Amara were hidden, safe in a reinforced room, watching the chaos unfold through small surveillance monitors. Malik's face, calm yet intense, mirrored his father's. Jun-suk moved like shadow and storm combined, eliminating threats with ruthless efficiency. Every movement, every decision was calculated. And yet, beneath the cold exterior, he felt fear not for himself, but for Malik. Every second away from the boy was unbearable. Hours later, the attackers retreated. The villa stood, bloodied but unbroken. Jun-suk returned, covered in soot and sweat, his chest heaving. Malik ran into his arms, clinging with both relief and pride. "You're alive," the boy whispered. "I promised I wouldn't leave," Jun-suk said, voice breaking slightly. "And I never will again." Amara stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "We can't stay," she said. "They'll come back." "I know," Jun-suk replied. "We move. Tonight." They escaped under the cover of darkness, slipping into the city streets like ghosts. For the first time, Malik saw the world as his father did, dangerous, unpredictable, and full of choices that carried consequences. In the moving car, Malik leaned against Jun-suk. "Will it always be like this?" he asked quietly. Jun-suk's hand rested on his son's shoulder. "Life is always like this if you're meant for more," he said. "But you're not alone anymore. Never again." The bond between them, fragile and new, solidified in those moments. Malik was no longer just a boy under threat. He was the son of a man who had fought empires, survived betrayals, and now would teach him to navigate a world both brutal and beautiful. Amara, watching the two of them, felt a strange mixture of awe and terror. This family, imperfect, dangerous, and unrelentingly exposed, was now her life. And she would fight for them no matter the cost. "They'll keep coming." Amara swallowed hard. "Then we fight," she said. Jun-suk looked at her, surprise flashing across his otherwise unreadable face. She had never shown this side so openly before, the steel hidden beneath vulnerability. "Yes," he admitted. "We fight. But carefully. Strategically." Malik peeked from behind Amara's leg. "I want to fight too," he said, the innocence in his voice clashing with the deadly reality around him. "No," Jun-suk said immediately, softening only when he saw the hurt in the boy's eyes. "Not yet. You watch. You learn. Then, when the time comes, you fight with purpose." That night, as the rain pounded relentlessly, the small family huddled together, planning, training, and preparing. Every shadow could be an enemy. Every movement could signal attack. And yet, in those moments they were family. Jun-suk taught Malik the first rules of combat: not to harm unnecessarily, but to survive. Each lesson was tempered with wisdom he had learned the hard way. Strength without restraint is destruction. Malik absorbed everything like a sponge, keenly aware of the stakes. Amara watched them, torn between awe and fear. She had underestimated Jun-suk, thinking the man who could control empires could be softened by love. But seeing him with her son revealed something entirely different. Fierceness, tenderness, and the kind of devotion that terrified and comforted her at once. Days blurred into nights. Surveillance reports, new threats, and constant vigilance consumed Jun-suk. But every night, he sat with Malik, recounting stories: not the empire, not the violence, but lessons, laughter, and memories from the few fleeting hours he had with Amara. Malik began to understand. He understood instinct. He understood control. And he began to understand what it meant to be the son of a man feared across continents. Then the ambush came. A convoy blocked the narrow road leading to the villa. Vehicles swarmed like locusts, armed men stepping out, guns gleaming. Jun-suk's team moved with precision. Bullets tore through the night, explosions shattered the stillness, and the air became thick with smoke and fear. Malik and Amara were hidden, safe in a reinforced room, watching the chaos unfold through small surveillance monitors. Malik's face, calm yet intense, mirrored his father's. Jun-suk moved like shadow and storm combined, eliminating threats with ruthless efficiency. Every movement, every decision was calculated. And yet, beneath the cold exterior, He felt fear not for himself, but for Malik. Every second away from the boy was unbearable. Hours later, the attackers retreated. The villa stood, bloodied but unbroken. Jun-suk returned, covered in soot and sweat, his chest heaving. Malik ran into his arms, clinging with both relief and pride. "You're alive," the boy whispered. "I promised I wouldn't leave," Jun-suk said, voice breaking slightly. "And I never will again." Amara stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "We can't stay," she said. "They'll come back." "I know," Jun-suk replied. "We move. Tonight." They escaped under the cover of darkness, slipping into the city streets like ghosts. For the first time, Malik saw the world as his father did, dangerous, unpredictable, and full of choices that carried consequences. In the moving car, Malik leaned against Jun-suk. "Will it always be like this?" he asked quietly. Jun-suk's hand rested on his son's shoulder. "Life is always like this if you're meant for more," he said. "But you're not alone anymore. Never again." The bond between them, fragile and new, solidified in those moments. Malik was no longer just a boy under threat. He was the son of a man who had fought empires, survived betrayals, and now would teach him to navigate a world both brutal and beautiful. Amara, watching the two of them, felt a strange mixture of awe and terror. This family, imperfect, dangerous, and unrelentingly exposed, was now her life. And she would fight for them no matter the cost. In Seoul, rivals whispered of the boy who had appeared suddenly in Nigeria. Whispers became rumors, rumors became threats, and threats became actions. But Kang Jun-suk had already anticipated them all. Because for once, he wasn't just fighting for power. He was fighting for love. And love, in his world, was the most dangerous weapon of all. They crossed the border under cover of darkness, a convoy arranged by Jun-suk's most trusted allies. Every checkpoint was calculated, every threat accounted for. Malik clutched Amara's hand, but his eyes never left his father's, absorbing everything. The strategy, the patience, the silent authority that made a man like Jun-suk untouchable. At last, they reached a safe haven, a secluded compound far from the city's reach. The walls were high, the ground secured, and for the first time in months, the family could breathe without feeling hunted. Malik ran into the open courtyard, laughing as he felt the grass under his feet, and for a moment, Jun-suk allowed himself to relax. But the world did not forgive carelessness, and he knew better than to celebrate too soon. Amara followed, tears streaming as she took in the moment. She had fought alone for so long, and now she realized she didn't have to anymore. This man, this Korean Mafia boss, the man who had once walked out of her life, was now standing beside her, and he was here to stay. Jun-suk approached, kneeling to Malik's level. "You're strong," he said quietly. "Stronger than you know. And you have to promise me something." "What?" Malik asked, curious. "Never let fear control you," Jun-suk said. "Control your fear, and you control everything else." Malik nodded solemnly, his small hand gripping his father's. In that moment, he wasn't just a boy. He was a son learning the ways of a man who had ruled empires with both brutality and wisdom. Amara stepped closer. "And us?" she asked softly. "Where do we fit in all this?" Jun-suk reached for her hand, holding it firmly. "We are family," he said. "And we will face this world together. No one will harm what's ours, not now, not ever." For the first time, Amara believed him. Years of fear and uncertainty dissolved in the strength of his presence. She realized that the man who had once walked away was now inseparable from her life. Love, raw and unyielding, had finally anchored him to her world. The following days were a blur of planning, training, and establishing the perimeter around their safe haven. Jun-suk trained Malik with patience, teaching him both physical skills and the lessons of strategy and observation. Amara watched, amazed at the boy's rapid growth and the gentle authority his father wielded. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the compound in a golden glow, Jun-suk sat with Amara on the balcony, Malik playing nearby. "You have no idea how much I've missed this," Jun-suk admitted quietly. "The small things. The quiet moments. I thought I could live without them, but I was wrong. Amara rested her head against his shoulder. We all have scars, she said softly. But now we have each other. And that makes us stronger than anything outside these walls. A soft smile touched Junsook's lips. Stronger than any enemy, he said. Malik, hearing this, ran over and threw his arms around both of them. I'm glad we're together, he said. His voice filled with conviction. Junsook held him tightly, feeling a surge of emotion that had nothing to do with power or fear. It was pure, unfiltered, and it scared him because he had never allowed himself to feel so deeply before. But for Malik, for Amara, he would bear it. He would protect it. Weeks passed, and threats continued to loom, but Junsook's presence, his unwavering commitment, and his meticulous planning kept them safe. Rivals attempted to strike, but every move was anticipated, every trap countered. The world of crime and violence remained outside their walls, a dangerous storm kept at bay by the fierce father who refused to let it touch his son. One night, Malik approached his father while Junsook was reviewing maps and reports. Will it always be like this? He asked, eyes wide but calm. Junsook looked at him, seeing both the boy and the man he was becoming. No, he said. One day you will decide your path. But until then I will teach you everything I know. And when the time comes, you will face the world with courage and wisdom. Malik nodded, a small smile forming. I want to be like you, Dad. Not just strong but smart too. Junsook's chest tightened with pride. You already are, he said. And together, we will make sure no one can ever hurt us. Amara, watching from the side, felt tears she had long held back finally fall. She realized that the love between them, imperfect, tested, and forged in fire, was unbreakable. The man she had once feared for leaving her was now the pillar she could rely on, the protector of her child and of her heart. In the quiet moments that followed, with Malik asleep between them, Junsook held Amara's hand tightly. I will never leave again, he whispered. Believe you, she replied. And for the first time in years, the world felt as though it had shifted. Fear still lingered beyond the walls, but inside the storm had calmed. Love had found its place amid violence, and family had become a fortress stronger than any empire or weapon. The Korean Mafia boss who had once walked out of a stranger's life had returned, not as a shadow of fear, but as a man who would fight, bleed, and love with everything he had. And in his arms, Amara and Malik finally felt safe, complete, and unshakably bound together. Outside, the city slept, unaware that a father, a mother, and a son had claimed victory over fate itself. The world could wait. Their hearts, scarred and tested, had finally found home. And in that home, for the first time, they were free.